Welcome back to another video of One of One Automotive. Every car has a unique story and something that sets it apart from the rest. Sitting behind me today is my friend Nathan's custom 1991 Volkswagen Corrado. We're going to go for a ride in his car. We're going to talk about some of the facts of the Volkswagen Corrado and show you guys what makes this car one of one. So the Volkswagen Corrado was produced from 1988 to 1995. Less than 10,000 of these were ever made, 97,521 to be exact. So this car is an FF platform, so it is front engine, front wheel drive, which is pretty interesting because at first glance when you look at this car, you might think it would be rear wheel drive. When the Volkswagen Corrado first debuted, it had two different engine options. The first engine option is a 1.8 liter 16 valve making 122 horsepower and 117 pound-feet of torque, which is the engine that's in this car right now. This one has been modified and we'll get into that just a little later. The second option it had was a 1.8 liter 8-valve supercharged, and the supercharger internals were kind of shaped like a G, so it got the nickname the G60. I'll leave the horsepower and torque specifications for all the other engines down below. Through the entire lifespan of the Volkswagen Corrado, it had 5 different engines. I really want to focus on specifically this car, but I still can't talk about the Volkswagen Corrado without mentioning the legendary VR6 that came out in 1992. The VR6 was so popular that Volkswagen quit production of the G60 altogether. It was much more reliable, enthusiasts loved the way it sounded, and it was such a unique engine. We got a 2.8 liter VR6 in America, and the European markets got a 2.9 liter variant. The VR6 was so interesting because basically this is a 4-cylinder engine bay. They fit this V6 in here, but the V6 is unlike any other V6. It only uses one head. The engine, instead of being at 90 degrees or 60 degrees, is actually up at a 15-degree angle, kind of shaped like a W, and it's just such a fascinating engine. But like I said, I really want to focus on what's in front of us today because this car has a lot of unique attributes that set it apart from the rest. In 1992, when the VR6 came out in the Volkswagen Corrado, they were all named SLCs. So if you ever see the SLC badge, it stands for Sports Luxury Coupe. The Volkswagen Corrado also, after 1992, came out with a 2.0 liter inline-4 naturally aspirated engine as just a cheaper option for the car. But those are the 5 engine variants. And now I want to jump into the custom attributes that make this 1.8 liter 16 valve so special, along with the rest of the car. I mean, there's so much crazy, cool, intricate work, but we're going to get my friend Nate, who owns this car, on camera now to kind of walk us through it a bit. Well, alrighty guys, this is my friend Nathan, and this is his 91 Volkswagen Corrado, and he has done a lot of work with us. He's been a longtime friend. His other car was an Audi A8 that was featured on the channel a couple times. Main_artist 19 on Instagram, so go check him out. And Nathan, please walk us around the car, man. Show us. Let's start with the exterior, and then we'll get into why you got this car. We gotta show the viewers what is so cool about this thing.
I guess a good place to start is right on the front end.
All right, let's check out this nose. So right here, right at the back, I can see you got this, like a headlight visor, would you say?
It's like eyelids almost is how they call it.
Yeah, I like that.
The guy I bought the car off of had it on it, or he had it, he just didn't have it on it. I don't know why he took it off. I figured it looked a lot better with it on.
Yeah, I agree. And then you got your Euro plate down here. This is on your old car. You've had this for a while.
Yep. So this is, back in 2019, I went to Germany, and one thing I wanted was an actual Euro plate, so I ended up grabbing one while I was there, and I kind of just run it on every car that I've had since. I think it fits the car really well too, being a pretty European car.
Yeah, it's a sick feature. These are VR6 fog lights up in the front here, right? These are actually your blinkers as well?
Yeah, so what you'll notice is the actual fogs are glass and the turns are plastic, along with the actual headlights, the E-Code headlights, so those are actually glass lenses as well.
Super cool. That's a big Euro thing, right? Like
it's
in
a
America,
really big Euro
they've been
thing.
plastic.
They also work a lot better than what the US got for our headlights.
That's cool. And yeah, they're all clear, so that's worth being noted because clear light's just so cooler.
They look way better. The side markers are done as well.
Right from factory too, there's a nice clean little front lip down here, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yep.
You got a black grill. Is this a factory grill, do you know?
The grill for this one's factory. I have plans, obviously, to change it out at some point.
Yeah, most definitely. And let's walk over to the side now. Let's talk about the color of this. What color is this car? This is a factory color, right? It is a light metallic?
Light metallic is the color on it. From what I understand, it's a rarer color. Reading through the forums, I've only seen a few people talk about it. I remember there's one guy who's mentioned that there were 3 in the UK that he knows of, and I can't imagine the numbers are much different here in the States, obviously.
And it's super interesting, like this, it's almost like a gold to an extent. I mean, you see that like that kind of metallic, almost like a silver in there.
Yep,
It's really interesting.
It's one of those things that I always have a hard time picking up on camera is the actual gold to it. So
Yeah.
when you came over for the first time when I got the car, you're like, we noticed it. It's like, it looks like it has pollen sometimes, but it's not. It's the actual
It's
paint
the
on
actual kind of gold shaped
Yep.
inside the paint.
And I think it's what makes it like a better gray almost.
Most
than
definitely.
like a normal gray would be.
Something that, I mean, you just pick up right away is these big, bright, white Aero discs on these beautiful rotiform wheels and the big Corrado decal down the side. I mean, this really completed the car. When you got the car, this car was sexy. I mean, we thought it was super cool.
The car was nice when I got it.
This is just like, this just brought it to a whole new level. Come check this out. We got this nice white Aero disc, and these are the rotiform, we call them lasers. They're LAS-Rs, correct?
Yeah, yep, that's what they are.
Wrapped in some nice Advan flavors. I'm gonna call them flavors. And we got these nice little LED white side markers. Again, it's the little details that really make a car like this beautiful. But what was the inspiration? I mean, what was the plan here?
So, I've always liked like 80s and 90s DTM racing, and those cars are always really boxy. Obviously, trying to find anything from that era is really expensive.
Yeah, but this fits it amazing. I mean.
Yeah, so essentially the idea is to build it to look like a replica DTM car, like what would have actually raced in the series if Corrados ended up racing in DTM. The Aero discs are a big part of that. They're pretty much supposed to copy the BBS Aero discs that they use.
Yeah.
The turbofans is what they're actually called.
I think it really complemented the car like
Yep.
crazy. And so this decal is new. This is my first time actually seeing this. And you said this is to resemble like the Porsche Carrera essentially,
Yeah,
right?
so
the font down here.
Yeah, the older Carreras used to have, I think some of the newer ones still do it too. I believe Porsche does that. After I put the wheels on, obviously it's the only white part on the car. And I was like, I'd been looking at the decal for a while, but once I put the wheels on, I was very much so like, it needs something else that's white.
It needs it. Yeah,
And
that white,
it really did need it.
Finished it. It completely complemented it in such a good way. Another interesting thing too about the Volkswagen Corrado is these are the same mirrors that the McLaren F1 used on their car, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they didn't want the engine for the F1. I don't know why.
If I had an F1 engine here, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I don't know, or vice versa. I mean, why didn't they want the 1.8?
That's what I'm saying.
Right back here, this car, most noticeable, like if you know your Volkswagen Corrados, you already know this, but it's so insanely cool. It has active aero. Now, it did work when Nate got it, but he was hit with the all-time, you know.
I don't know where the electrical issue is. That's what it is.
He's got an electrical issue, so it's not activating right now. What happens is in America, the active aero will actually come up over 45 miles per hour and it'll retract back down at 15 miles per hour. But in Europe, I believe it actually comes up at about 60 to 70 miles per hour, depending on where you are. So pretty interesting. At 45, it probably doesn't do too much aerodynamic good, especially in the USA, but it looks cool, and that's kind of all that matters. And actually, can you tell me about this a little bit? Because this is aftermarket as well.
So this is aftermarket. This is spoon-fed tuning. It should be a fiberglass wing. Obviously, the guy had it painted to match the car, which I really like. I know some people don't do it. You can buy, there's a carbon fiber one that you can get too.
Oh, that's cool.
Which people usually don't paint for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It's about 2 inches longer.
This one here is
then,
2 inches longer than a factory.
One.
And it looks phenomenal. I mean, it looks like it was stock to the car.
Yeah.
The paint match looks great.
Yep.
I see that the rear wiper has been deleted for a cleaner look back here. You have an aftermarket exhaust. We can see that down there.
Do I know what it is? I don't.
No, that's okay. Sounds good. We'll get a look at sound clip. Boxy and round at the same time. I mean, this is a really beautiful hatch.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The whole car is really interesting. It hit a really good market of enthusiasts for sure.
It is very much so an enthusiast car now.
I'm sure people knew then it was going to be a classic car. And unfortunately, the downfall of the Corrado was it was just too expensive.
It was too expensive, and they had other cars like the Golf and everything like that.
Did almost the same thing with the same engine. Just this had
same platform.
a nicer. I mean, arguably, I guess it's opinion-based, but this one looks a little more sporty per se.
Yeah, this is more of like a sporty version of what the Golf is.
You get these nice big boxy taillights. Come check this out. We got this Volkswagen emblem embedded in this little metal panel right here that goes right to the rear quarter. It's all molded in. You get Corrado written right down here. I love this bumper too. I believe this is a factory bumper, and it just comes down so low.
Yep.
That was such a thing of its time, man. It was almost like having a factory body kit right there. Just the way it's set up, it looks so good. The third eye brake light has been deleted. That would have sat right about here, you said?
Yeah. So this is pretty much a filler piece for it. You obviously take the brake light out and then put that in.
And then right around here, we have, this is why this panel is all connected as well, as this has been aftermarket blended into the body of the car, which gives it just such a good look. It's those little custom details that matter. There is some side trim that would have existed on the car at one point that is no longer there, which again cleans up the car a ton. And I think Nate's gonna open up the hood now. We're gonna talk about some of the specifications of the engine. Also worth mentioning is this is a Passat sunroof. I don't know for sure why they had swapped over to it. I don't know if a factory Corrado would have just been paint matched.
They were painted from the factory.
So
I think that's a big part of it.
This gives you a nice glass roof is my assumption.
Yep.
But right over here is the 1.8 liter that we keep talking about.
So I guess the big thing is obviously that it's a shaved and painted engine bay. I know you're gonna put it down below. There's a full build form online on VW Vortex called the 4-day bay. Pretty much started in 2009, and it was like a whole 10-year process that the guy started working on the car. It lived in Florida for a little bit, so obviously he had warmer weather to work on it year round.
Yeah. And I mean, that was a huge buying point for you, was this shaved engine bay. I remember we were looking online, like you and I going back and forth, and we're like, dude, this is really cool.
Well, I remember I found it the night it got listed, and we were on a call together, and I was like, you gotta look at this thing.
Yeah.
And I sat on it for a little bit. But yeah, I've always wanted a car with a shaved bay. I think it's either I would do it myself or obviously find one that has it.
Well, I mean, just for what you got this for, I mean, it was worth it, you know what I mean? The work already being done. But this car is nowhere near the end of its time.
No, not yet.
Like you have so much you want to do to it still too, so.
Yep.
Just kind of a cool aspect to think of.
Well, what's really nice is the motor has a bunch of forged internals, obviously. It's tuned for a turbo. It's on a 9:2 ratio right now. The guy before me had a turbo kit for it. He sold it.
Yep.
I don't hold it against him. I wish I could have bought that turbo with it because it'd be a lot more fun to drive with it, I feel like.
Yeah, it would have changed the car around for sure. Everything is really custom in here. I want to keep this video simple and fun for y'all. So, I mean, right off the bat, you can see your cold air intake. You got a whole, different intake manifold, aftermarket fuel rail.
Yep.
Are these individual coil packs now? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. So this would have had a distributor from factory, correct? This would have been a pretty bare bones engine. I know you got the Megasquirt ECU in here, so it's all tuned. It's still a 1.8, but it has a Scirocco 1.8 liter head.
Yes. Yep. And the reason people would do that is because the normal heads on these would warp, and the heads on the Sciroccos just didn't warp as much because of heat.
You do see right here, we got the aluminum radiator, you got electric fans, we have a front and rear strut brace, which is pretty cool. It's just those little details, but again, they're really nice.
Yep.
I'm gonna put a nice spec sheet down below in the description, so if you wanna see the forums from when this car, was it when it was being built, or he just kind of set all the...
It's like daily updates of when the car is being built.
Super cool.
And there's pictures on there from when everything was taken out and the bay was still the factory.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like, unfinished, whatever it is.
It's crazy.
And going through the process of that, and it's really nice to see, and it helps me when I want to work on the car know where things are.
Oh, especially, I mean, it's a really, really well done car. I mean, there's just a lot to note, but it's a lot of little things, so we don't want to bore you all with that. So if you're interested, I'll post a picture and we'll put it in the description below. But another thing I want to talk about too is when you got this car, I mean, you've already done quite a few small modifications to it since you've had it, and especially big things too, like the wheels.
The wheels are a very big one.
But you had BBS wheels on it when you got it, right? They were black BBS wheels.
They were black BBS wheels, and it's funny I'm going to say this because I have black wheels under these now, and I love how it looks.
Yeah.
I didn't like how the black BBSs looked, so I had them refinished in a nice silver.
Yes, and I remember that actually. I'll post a picture. I'll post pictures of these as we go too, because it looked really clean with the silver wheels. I really liked it. It was huge.
Very much so.
New shoes through and through.
I still have the BBSs. I think if I ever take these off, those will be the first things to go back on. It works so well on this car, and I know a lot of Corrado owners put those wheels on their cars as well. Give
us some info on the car. I mean, you had a little bit of a story getting it home, so I'm gonna leave this to you to talk, man.
Back in mid-April, I was talking to Derek, and we were on a call together, and I was like going through Marketplace, and I was like, oh, this is a Corrado. I'd been looking for a Corrado. As Derek said, I had that Audi A8 before, and it was a bit of a mess because I just wasn't home enough to drive it, had electrical issues. Figured I'd sell the car so someone could actually take care of it. I remember just talking to my dad about it. I was like, I'm gonna buy a project car. I didn't know what it was gonna be at the time. And then I started thinking, I was like, I've always wanted a Corrado. I've always wanted a Corrado, I've always wanted a Scirocco. Scirocco's are a little harder to find in good condition than Corrados. Kind of set my mind on wanting to get a Corrado instead. I also think they look better personally. Some people might disagree. About second to last week of May, Dad came down to grab me from Boston, and we drove the 6-hour drive to Long Island to pick up the Corrado. Hadn't seen it before, went down with intentions of wanting to buy it. I was hell-bent on not letting anything deter me away from getting the car. So when when we took it out for a test drive and it had a slipping clutch and the brakes were really faded and really like had to put your foot all the way to the floor to stop, I was like, it's only a 6-hour drive home.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Yep.
And I do want to mention, like, Nate and I, when he first got the car, we went to his house like that day or the day after. It's probably the day after, I believe. And we actually made a video of us driving it around, and it was interesting to say the least. It kind of rips, man. Like, that's just like a little half throttle. You put a new clutch in it, you did the brakes.
Yep. A week after I got the car, Dad and I, we put a new clutch on it, and we didn't redo the brakes. It just needed to be bled, which is...
Oh, that was it?
That was it. That's all I needed,
awesome.
Which was really nice because I'd have to buy new brakes for it. Little did I know we could have just done that in New York. Would have saved us a lot of trouble from driving home in the rain. One of the other big things that you and I dealt with when we first drove it was it cutting out.
Yep.
That's been fixed, as you know. Kind of just like the little things like that make it a real project car.
So at this point, you've made the car like solid and drivable, and like relatively no issues at this point, besides now the active aero not going up or down. But it's little things. I mean, that just comes with old project car.
Yeah, I mean, it's a car from the 90s. When I bought the car, like, you kind of have it in the back of your mind. You're like, it's a car from the 90s. Like, it's
You're going to have
not
cars from the 90s problems.
Yeah, it's not going to be pristine. And the one thing you always hear people say with these is the electrical systems on these are like what will give you the most problems out of everything.
Most definitely.
Yep.
One thing I also want to mention too, just this the Forza sticker, man. Hit us with it. Hit us with it.
So back in 2012, I think the first Forza Horizon came out, and the starting car in that is it's a VR6 Corrado, so it's not a 16 valve. Unfortunately, they went with the cooler option. I wouldn't blame them. I think that really like sparked like my love for weird 90s cars.
Yeah, I understand that, man.
These cars are cool. Like, they have their issues, but like they're cool at the end of the day, and people love them. I love driving it. I love getting people's like reactions, like going to the gas station. People are like, dude, I love that thing. I'm like, I love it too. Like, thanks.
And interesting enough too, like even here we really don't see any of these. So they've kind of become a rarity. I mean, only about 50,000 of these made it into the USA, with 100,000 ever being built. Well, like I said, less than. So, you know, it's a hard car to come across, especially nowadays. You know, so it's definitely a fun, unique car, and that's entirely why we wanted to film it. I think the next big thing we got to do now, though, is we got to get in this thing and drive it.
We can take it out for a drive.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
So right back here, you can see the strut brace and the little sub setup back here with like one 10-inch sub. I think it's a 10. We come back here. Look at this. You get the nice little privacy shade. So when you close the hatch, it looks real nice and clean. A quick little look at the interior. So this is all black leather door panels. They're nice and plush. I love that about this. And right inside the car, it has some black leather seats. This is just clean. I mean, what could you not love about this besides getting burnt in the summer? Other than that, this is super cool. Like, it looks just so good in this car. You can fold the seat down, and right here we have I think it's called an auto power roll bar in the back here. And I mean, look at these back seats. We're gonna hop right in here. I have ridden in here before. I hit my head on the bar already. I have ridden back here before. But like, what I love about riding back here, it is a little tight head-wise. My head's touching the roof, but you get this nice big cushion right here, and it is just super comfortable. I mean, you got to think it's a compact car, but it's so comfy. I was gonna be in the passenger seat, but why don't we just start here? What do you think? I'll take the small squish back here. Don't mind the little wiring. It's a project car, guys. Come on, this is what we do. But it also has a nice suede headliner. This is all custom, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Someone put the time in.
Car off of actually took the time to get refinished.
It shifts great, and that's actually worth mentioning as well. Is this car came factory with the option of a manual or an automatic trans, but this is like a fully built O2A trans with like gears out of every other car. I mean, it's really intricate how they have it set up. So this is a 5-speed manual transmission, and you also have LSD, so you got a limited slip differential. And the body of this car is built by Carmen, so that is why we got the badging down there. Something really cool is like just that little steering wheel right there. I love how cool that thing looks. We'll get it on the driver's side in a little bit, and I'll show you guys kind of the knobs and things like that. But just going for a cruise in this is really fun. It's a great handling car as well. We are back here, boys, and I'm ducking down a little bit, you know, trying not to be like up against a headliner like this. But It is like a really fun ride back here. It's it is really comfy. I mean, on a long road trip, it might suck being a little squished in here, but for the most part, I mean, it's really like, it's comfy, you know what I mean, for small drives and things like that. Up front, you get plenty of space. Like they are.
I have room.
Yeah, they are not stressing it in the slightest, but yeah, it's fun, you know. It's a good little 4-seater car. Yeah, there you go. Just got a little pull to her.
That first gear is a really good driving gear.
So we have just made it to our second spot, and something I gotta mention is we are squeezing out of here now. We're gonna walk through the interior just a little bit more in depth now that we've gone for a fun little ride in this thing. This car comes factory without cup holders, but Nathan has a 3D printed cup holder, so it's nice living in 2024, isn't it?
Yes,
having all these custom things we can do to make cars better these days. Kind of interesting that a car like this doesn't come with cup holders, but you know.
I think Europeans just weren't big on them.
That's fair. Okay, we're gonna hop in here now, and this is really cool. So this is the gauge cluster right here. You have your temperature gauge, your fuel, you get your speedometer and your tachometer. Right down here would be your digital odometer and a digital clock. And it's kind of cool how they have this set up to where a little light bulb will trigger if something is wrong with the car, as opposed to just like a little symbol popping up. Right over here, you get these pretty unique switches. They're just, they're real cool to, they're just really fun to play with. It feels so 80s. Yep. You get electric mirrors, you get the electric windows, and the switches are right down here by your knee. I mean, it's just so plush. Like, you could just be driving, you can grab onto this. It's perfectly designed for your hand to sit here. The door handle is just real easy to navigate in this car. And something else worth mentioning is also, like I said, it is the 5-speed manual transmission. You get the Karman badge right here. And, you know, it's just really user-friendly. Yep. Honestly.
Yeah, it's really nice.
If we hop out of the car, another big thing worth mentioning is usually in a lot of the American models, if your Volkswagen Corrado came factory without airbags, it would have had electronic seatbelts. Now, I'd have to imagine this one, in the advertisement originally said it had the Euro belt conversion done, so essentially just regular seatbelts. So we were trying to figure if this car would have had the factory belts where you would open the door, they would retract, you'd sit in the car, and they would retract, and then you would still have to buckle yourself in. These are a lot nicer. They're more simple to use, and they make sense. But the e-belts were pretty interesting. You know, it's a cool feature nonetheless that these had. You get some speakers down in the doors, and I mean that's pretty much all the interior of this car. But it's just a fun car. Now what I'm gonna do is I want to walk you guys around the car and tell you a couple little more bits of information that I may have left out. So this car also has a South Bend Stage 3 clutch kit with a lightweight flywheel. The suspension is, the car is lowered on some Bilstein coilovers. It's got some upgraded sway bars front and rear from New Speed. It's got drilled and slotted brake rotors in the front and the back, but the big Aero discs make it impossible to see that, which is okay, because at least you know it's there. The battery also has been relocated to the trunk, and that is a big step in shaving your engine bay. And now I want to talk about a couple cool facts about the Corrado to finish off this vid. So the Volkswagen Corrado got its 1.8 liter 16 valve from the Mark II Volkswagen Scirocco. That was its first ever debut, was in the Mark II Scirocco. Now, the Volkswagen Corrado has a lot of similarities to a Mark II Golf. It shares a lot of the same things as subframe, floor pan, and even a lot of suspension as well. So the Corrado was built to pretty much replace the Scirocco and compete against cars like the Porsche 944, the Acura Integra GSR, the Ford Probe GT, and many other interesting cars of that time. Another interesting thing the Volkswagen Corrado did is it kind of broke tradition with the name Corrado. Before this, all Volkswagens of this era were named after wins. You had the Passat, the Polo, the Scirocco, the Golf, or like Gulfstream. The Corrado wasn't a win. They were going to name it the Typhoon, but went with Corrado instead, which kind of translate over to run/sprint. You could buy a Volkswagen Corrado new for about $18,000 when they first came out, and then about 1994, they rose up to about $24,000. Even today, you could get into a clean example of a Volkswagen Corrado, you know, engine variants depending and things like that, for anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. I think that's going to do it for today's video, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to check out the video on this beautiful 1991 Corrado. I had a lot of fun filming it. It's a little different from most cars I film. I haven't actually gotten the chance to film, I don't think, any German cars yet. So this is really cool for us. You know, I'm really comfortable with Japanese cars. This was a whole new experience. We're trying out some new film styles as well. So if you like what you got to see today, let me know down in the comments below. This was just such a cool experience. I'd love to give a huge shout out to my friend Nate for letting us film this car today. And if you want to see some more car content in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, and peace out.